We'll start on Friday night. It is Sydney hosting Port Adelaide in the first of the prelim finals. One change for the Swans. Robbie Fox is in. It's a heartbreaking story for the captain, Callum Mills. I can't see a way that he gets up for a grand final if Sydney progress, but Fox does give them some flexibility. And if Geelong get through, he got a pretty good record on Jeremy Cameron as well. So he may hold his place. Braden Campbell was the sub in that game against the Giants and came on and had a huge impact. So I suspect he will start in the 22 for Port Adelaide. They trained at the SCG yesterday. Charlie Dixon has been named. Ryan Burton back from that calf issue. Todd Marshall his career, unfortunately, is in a bit of limbo with another concussion event. He's out, and Will Lorenz was the sub last week. So your first thoughts on this one, Kingy? Of course, Port Adelaide's record has been well spoken about against Sydney. What does it mean? Last time they played, they won by 112 points. Sydney have a few players back that didn't play on that day, and they're sitting, waiting. They're in good form. How do you see it?
Well, none of them really turned up on that day.
No, they didn't.
They got smashed everywhere the ball went.
Yeah,
Contested footy
strange.
early was unbelievable. Ball movement, they just shut them down, Port. The science behind it, and we talked about this on First Crack, I thought the planning to take corridor, the way that they did it, was absolutely first class from Ken Hinkley. They will do that again.
Can you stop it?
Yeah, they did stop it last time, and they just stayed 10 metres corridor side of their direct opponent, and they allowed Sydney, if you want to take wide, you can take wide, and then they'll pin them to one side of the ground to give their interceptors behind the ball an opportunity, which is your man Lear. So I think it's a huge game for who owns corridor for me. Now Port Adelaide are not necessarily firing through the corridor. Last week they changed things slightly. Joey showed some great numbers on Wednesday night. I just think whoever owns corridor wins because Sydney come with speed.
Yep.
And if they come with corridor, it ends up with the key playmakers. So who can deny the others, the other team more regularly? And that was where Port were unbelievable last
they
week.
were really good last
We
week.
did the game together on SEN with Jared and Dwayne. Without the footy was why they won. Can they repeat that level of performance?
It's probably it's the exact same sort of system and setup that they want to go in with this game as they did with Hawthorn. They shut corridor, they shut down their uncontested marks right from the start. The pressure was enormous. Their tackling was unbelievable, sort of 5 holding the balls in the first quarter. It's just the question is, can you sustain that again with a few of your lesser lights that at times this year have let them down? So can they get a career best game again from Lockie Jones? And can Jace Burgoyne do it again? Can Logan Evans hold up behind? Can Zirk Thatcher hold up behind the? So there's so many question marks over Port Adelaide. There's not as many with Sydney. They're more even across the board, and I think with their forward line, they're more likely to get the easier goals. Papley's there, Hayward is there, Heaney will go forward. They probably get a goal or two out of Warner. So I just think for Port Adelaide, can they get some easy goals? Because it felt like everything was sort of hard work and they had to really fight and they needed brilliance from Rioli and a few players standing up. So we'll see how that plays out. But I suspect
Rioli's the one, isn't he?
Rioli's the one. Is it Cunningham? Is it Lloyd?
Cunningham.
Is it Cunningham?
Yeah. He gets those types, the dangerous smalls that can play out of the goal square. I think in the end, and it doesn't matter where you want to look, your eyes are drawn back to the midfield battle. The guns are in the middle, and both teams well stacked, in good form. I hope Paul Francis got through the week okay.
Yeah.
He really struggled at the end of that game.
The double cramp.
The
full body cramp.
So he would have had a different week. And it is tough to get on the road and win. We keep saying that, but
get some pickle juice into him this week, can you?
He's been living on pickle juice. Jace Burgoyne fascinates me.
Would they tag him?
That's what I was just going to ask you. Would you put James Jordan to him and just say, you know what, you are having no influence on this game?
They may do that. They may. And when you get tagged for the first time, I used to love tagging players that had never been tagged before because they're like a deer in headlights. I got no idea what to do. No idea. That's why if I was Brisbane, and we'll get to them shortly, I'd go after Max Holmes. I'm not sure Max Holmes has ever been tagged properly. It's such a different experience. And for Jace to cop that would be hard work.
I would do it. I would definitely do it because it takes away what was a strength area for Port Adelaide last week and it makes them manufacture another halfback flanker of damage.
And he's smart enough, I think, Jordan. He's not just your shut down, I'm not going to get the ball if it's there to get it. He's smart enough to get off and probably can kick a goal or two on him. So be a really interesting battle from the coach's box. Can Sydney start with so many unanswered questions with this one? But if you're asking for a tip, I think I think Sydney, with the form that they're in, win quite comfortably. I just hope Port Adelaide can make a game of it. So, we get a great prelim final on
I think
Friday
you get
night.
a great read with Sydney. Nick Blakey's first kick. It's amazing how often
aggressive.
if he fires that first one and it hits, Sydney lift and they're away.
Sydney are away.
If they turn it over, game on. I think they will use Campbell as the sub again.
You think they will?
Why would you change something that's been absolutely boom for you?
It is a big boost when you look up and you go, so we're halfway through the third quarter, the game's in the balance, and we've got this weapon that can come on with fresh legs. But I don't know, is he too good to have in that role, and would McInerney be
But that
the
role's
right
a winner.
one? It is.
Never change a winner is one of my coaching
Yep.
things. If you've got a winner, never change a winner. He comes on, he impacts. If you have Robbie Fox as the sub, you're thinking, where do we bring him on? And is he going to be able to accumulate possessions? If he could do that, he'd probably in the team anyway.
How do you see the heartbreak with Mills and to a lesser extent Adams? Like Taylor Adams, not even an emergency in this game. Like he's a fair way back. Like so, the Mills one is huge. Hasn't been there for the majority of the year, of course, but he won't play grand final week if they get through. Could he?
Most premierships have a heartbreak attached. There's one or two players, sometimes more. I mean, I look back at when West Coast won it. There's no Nick Nat. There's no Andrew Gafford. No Brad Shepherd. You're thinking, how can they not?
Exactly.
How can they win at one without those guys? But there's always trauma on the edges.
Bob Murphy.
Another
one.
Yep.
Yeah. 0433 98 11 16. Premiership heartbreak. We may do that one next week. But if you want to send us a text, not ideal when the captain isn't in there. But I didn't think he played well, to be completely honest, last week against. I thought he was a bit of a liability with the mistakes that he made against the Giants.
Is a good in.
Fox is a good in.
Yeah.
They got good depth. All right, let's move on to Saturday, 5:15, of course, when automation is key to your business success. Trust Conveyor Logistics for your warehouse automation solutions. Want to play the exchange as we get to this game between yourself and Mark Robinson on AFL 360 on Wednesday night. Here it is. Did he have a point?
About fakes?
Yeah.
Well, they're two separate issues, right? If you want to do the Brisbane issue first, of course we're critical. We do review shows. That's what we do. So if you lose games that you possibly should have won or get things wrong, this is what we do. We review. I think they're a team that should be in this position, that should be in grand finals. This list has been built over a 3, 4, 5 year period, 2 to 3 years ago, right? Chris is a major part of that. This now is a premiership list. If they go through, like everyone talks about Melbourne, they should have won 2 with this group rather than just the 1. This is the same. They've got an opportunity with this group to win 1. So their standards are a little bit higher than others. So maybe that...
Should they be higher than the Giants? So I think to Robbo's point with the criticism of the coaching, and he mentioned, when you said they've been brain in the coach's box at quarter time and then half time, should you have been equally as critical on Adam Kingsley and the Giants and complimentary of Chris for getting them back into the game and winning when the Giants let De Goey have 13 clearances or whatever in last year's prelim, have the position they were in against Sydney and 44 points up against Brisbane? Should you have been equally as critical of the Giants? Because their list is pretty stacked as well.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about the given game you're talking about on the weekend. I'm not sure retrospective on what we did say or didn't say, so I'm unaware of what.
But there's a history there with the Giants.
Yeah, so
of coughing up.
But if you listen to the review post game, we said this will haunt the Giants. Yeah. This loss is a shocker, and we that was the first call we made. People don't want to bring that up because they've got a story, they've got an angle. We're going to go hard here. He's short here. I still think in any given game you can coach brilliantly and lose, and you can coach poorly and win.
You thought he coached poorly and won?
No, I just said in any given game that can happen. Chris Fagan has a different style of coaching. It's for me. I look at games and look for change. At halftime, I thought they needed to change. He didn't think they needed to change. He trusts his group and he trusts those guys.
Did he not put Ashcroft in? Did he not get a bit more aggressive?
If you listen to Lachie Neale talking post game, he says Ashcroft come to him and said, "I'm feeling it.
Yeah,
I'm going in." So there's no right or wrong. There's no one way to win a game of footy.
Is there a vendetta
ways.
Against Chris Fagan?
I have a vendetta against Chris Fagan. And I challenge you to find any point where I've said that. The discussion we had during the year was about if Chris Scott was gettable for the Tasmanian opportunity, first coach, the inaugural coach, why wouldn't Brisbane look at him? They got a good coach, if not very good coach. could be potentially replaced by a great coach. They would win it. In my opinion, they would win it. There's nuance with Geelong the way they play. Absolute nuance. And we'll sit here and say, what do you do with Stewart? What do you do with Brian Myers and Close and
Cameron.
these guys charging forward? What do you do with Cameron? What do you do with stoppage when they're spitting out? Why is he able to do more with less?
Because he's the best, but he's the best coach. Like, I mean, you could say, I would say the same if Chris Scott went to the Bulldogs or went to Fremantle.
Yeah, and that's fine. Say that.
Oh yeah, I know. You could make that case because he's the best coach in it.
Say it.
Yeah,
So I've got no problem. If you want to say that, say it. So my view isn't necessarily we can sit here and pot the teams that are 18, 17, 16 on the ladder. What's the point of that? Let's have a look at the teams that should be winning it and work out the difference. I'm critical of Chris in one aspect only, and I don't think there's a lot of nuance with how they play. It's pretty set and forget, right? And even in the post-match, he said that himself.
Or he even said in the pre-game, he said he sort of leaves it to his players with the matchups, which I think is a mistake. Like Harris Andrews at one point had to go over to and play on Hogan.
That was all I said.
So that's one point, and I think that is fair. But equally, I think there was some changes in him. I thought Archie on Whitfield was really good. I thought
which we mentioned.
Zorko getting really aggressive,
which we mentioned,
and impacting.
But all this stuff doesn't get brought up because it doesn't suit other people's agendas. So I've got no problem with it.
So did you think Robbo was unfair?
I thought he was unfair to ask the coach on Monday night to insinuate that I had said that he's tactically short of the mark. That is an unfair position to put a senior coach
Is that what you believe,
on
though?
live TV. What's that?
That he's tactically short of the mark?
No, he does it differently. There's no one way to win a game or to set up your footy club. I've got no problem with that, right? I've got no issue. If I want to say he can't coach, I'll sit here and say it. We've said it before about Mark Neild. This guy's got to go, right? This guy will put your club back 5 years, 10 years. If I want to say it, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Don't say it for me. If you're going to go with a narrative, that is written or spoken, not insinuated. Don't make things up and put the coach in that situation on live TV. Fages could have destroyed me on Monday night after that question, but he didn't. And this, I respect that. But I look at this team and I say they should be winning it. Now, that's not necessarily a Chris Fagan issue. And we went through the draft picks and what they got in terms of talent running out on the weekend. So for me, the two issues are different, right? If you want to say I've said something, make sure I've said it. Or what are you doing? And the Brisbane discussion, I think they're a fantastic outfit, and at some point they have to win a flag with this group. They're now on the road because they didn't finish top 4 with this group, and you can argue whatever you want with that. They can correct that. They can win this week and then win the flag. Good luck to them. But it's nothing personal. We just review the game.
So hold that thought and we'll take a look at how this game may play out and what are the key factors to it now that we have addressed that.
So people are saying tactically inept. Not insinuating that at all. There's not a lot of nuance. There's a difference. There is a difference. Points of difference for Geelong, the way they play, the way GWS play. I don't think the Lions have that. Doesn't mean you can't win games of footy.
One change for the Cats. Tom Stewart, of course, picks himself. Tui was, look, I was somewhat surprised that he's omitted, of course, started as a sub against Port Adelaide. He is out. I would think Mullen will be the sub. I think that's what will happen. And for Brisbane, they are unchanged. So Chris Fagan has gone with the same group. He's kept faith with Logan Morris. He's clearly kept faith with Eric Hipwood despite his form struggles. What's your first thoughts?
No change. Best 2 words in footy. No change. So Brisbane, I guess I'm worried about the health of Lachie Neale. If I just had, if you knew the information that they know, you'd be obviously wiser for discussing the game. But if he's not right, it's going to leave the heavy lifting to Ashcroft again.
Yep.
McCluggage and Dunkley are going to have to step up. The big worries for me are how Geelong play. That they have the ability to put speed on the game, charging back to goal so quickly. And normally it's from stoppage. And they've been an unbelievable stoppage outfit for the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So what we've always had in our mind's eye about Geelong has totally flipped because of these half forwards right up the ground charging back. Do they sit off and pick them as they come through? And often 3 come at 2 defenders. And you've got to pick your poison. Who am I covering? Who am I taking? It's a tough way to defend. So that'll be a significant challenge, and to me, that'll probably dictate the game.
I'm looking at no De Koning. Like, and it's hard for me or anyone to be critical of Chris Scott, and they did keep Port Adelaide to 54 points with this defensive unit. Tom Stewart comes back in to strengthen that up as well. But if you were, I said this during the week, if you were in the lab building a player like from scratch to take on Joe Danaher, De Koning would spit out. So that's what if you're actually designing the perfect player to play on Joe, 204 centimetres, great reach, ideal athletic matchup for Joey. He's fit. And he hasn't been selected. So I think this is somewhat of a gamble, but I understand the gamble because he's just going to back in Blixarves if he does it, or Kolodjasny if he does it, or Guthrie's been in unbelievable form to do it again. But if it doesn't work and Joe once again is the match winner and you've got De Koning with his headband sitting in the stands going, he's fit and ready to go, 204 centimetres, I think it's a risk. That's all I'm saying, not selecting him. So that
would
may
it be more of a risk to bring a player in for a job of that size?
But couldn't you drop Mullen and go? It could be a bit more flexible with Blixarves. Like even Blixarves has played on Lachie Neale before, so he's got that flexibility. So De Koning just replaces Blixarves, who did a great job on Charlie Dixon. But you can put Blixarves anywhere.
Yeah,
like Mullen or De Koning, like to have that. I've never seen anything from Mullen that says to me that he's an AFL player yet.
Oh, no.
I haven't.
Haven't you?
No. I mean, I like his...
He played on your man.
Yeah, he's played on Horn Francis, but he...
Did all right.
Yeah, in the early game. Yeah, I don't know. I would have gone De Koning, but I understand there's been form issues, there's been body issues, but he's fit, he's ready to go, he's going to be in the grandstand, and Joe Danaher is 200 centimetres and he's the potential match winner for Brisbane.
Yeah, there's a lot of match winners.
They got them everywhere, but they... Like,
if you're going to pick it because of the match winners, you might make 15 changes.
How many of those need to be in the gun? We'll get to in the gun shortly.
Well, look at the way. So there's very few genuine one-on-one matchups that go from minute 1 to minute 120. So when Blixarves goes to Danaher, that's it for the game. He'll go on ball with him and do the ruck work and try and get off him. I think that's a real threat that Geelong could expose. Joe the other way.
Joe's a different beast than Charlie on one leg. Like Charlie's...
When was the last time you saw Joe in the defensive 50?
But I mean, I'd be reluctant to put him for any meaningful minutes in the ruck.
Who?
Like Joe.
No, he does it every week.
Yeah, but I'll just this week. That's exactly what they want. They want Blixarves to go with Danaher and follow him into the ruck. But
you can't change what you've done all year.
But it's Reece Stanley. So it's like, I mean, we can get Dunkley to compete against Reece Stanley in the ruck if you need to. Like just for a 10-minute chop out to give Oscar a break. Like Reece Stanley is a different proposition to a big, aggressive ruck.
Who wins?
I'm going to go with Brisbane, Kingy.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm staring at you in your Geelong.
I tipped Brisbane last week.
Did you?
With you.
Yeah, you did.
And the backwash was enormous.
And you were right.
I think the Cats late.
Steal
the game.
What a game. What a
Last
weekend.
2-minute drill.
How good's it going to be? Kingy, who are you putting in the gun?
Chris Fagan. No, no.
You should have. You should have. We may as well. Why not?
I'm putting Josh Dunkley,
oh,
Premiership player of 2016, in his first year in Game 17 for the Dogs. He's been there, he's done it. He's a top liner and he's been a model of consistency all year. His last 4 weeks have been pretty strong. 14, 7 and 11 contested footy. Tick. Score involvements so-so, 5, 6, 7, 5. He'll step into the middle this week against Patrick Dangerfield, who is fresh and ready to rip another final to shreds. And just having a look at what's happened in the last 3 years with Paddy, he's basically played the last 10 games of each of the last 3 years. It's the short prep for the star aging midfielder to keep power in the legs. So last year's prelim against Brisbane, 28 disposals, 16 contested, 8 clearances, 8 score involvement. So if they want to win this game, I think it's up to a player like Dunkley to take responsibility for Patrick Dangerfield. If they don't, it's not disastrous. It doesn't mean that Brisbane can't win or anything like that, but someone's got to take responsibility for Paddy.
The week off was handy for Dangerfield, wasn't it?
Unbelievably handy.
Just perfectly set up.
You see his numbers, like his last, it's just ridiculous. He's had 38 clearances the last 5 weeks. Last week he had 24. The last time he played, 2 weeks ago, 24 touches and 12 of them become scores. Like he is in rare air right now. And I just feel like someone needs to say he's mine. Tom Green got off the chain early last week. Don't let Dangerfield get off the chain this week.
That was who Kingy's got in the gun for Grays.com, Australia's leading online auction marketplace. And in the intro there, I said at some point throughout the year I had options coming out my ears. Well, it's the same today. Like you just could go so many areas with, like the obvious one is Rayner. Like, come on, mate. Like, far out. You're in the gun. You give me something. You're too good to be delivering a good performance, then nothing. He's got to close the gap between his best stuff and his horrible stuff.
And even the Australian squad.
Yeah, well, I didn't. We as a collective, as a collective, we did.
I realised we were separating ourselves.
And so he could be in the Charlie Cameron, Zach Bailey could be in the gun. Like, where you been, Zach? Come on, any danger? Zorko, I thought he could be in. I could go to Port Adelaide and put the big three in the gun. I could put Butters and anyway, but I'm going to put left field. Oscar McInerney in the gun.
The Big O.
The Big O is in the gun. Do you know how many times he started behind at throw-ins against Jeddah? It was just bizarre. I couldn't work it. What are you doing starting from behind? Now, you're taking on Reece Stanley, who at one point throughout this year had 2 feet or 1.5 feet in football's graveyard. He was subbed out early in the second quarter of a game this year, Stanley. Like this was it. You're done. Like the most humiliating thing that's happened to a player since the sub's been introduced. What a resurgence.
Yeah.
What a resurgence to the point where he was really good against Port Adelaide, but he should be no match for the Big O. The Big O should be sticking that pointy elbow, the pointy knee into him, giving his midfield first. You've spoken about the half forwards that come up and then get on the fly. Oscar can almost single-handedly eliminate all of that if he controls the aerial battle from the ruck. So he's in the gun, need a big Oscar performance, such an important player for them, unheralded. And if he plays well and with aggression, I think that's going to be a big talking point as to whether Brisbane can get through to a grand final again. Grays.com, Australia's leading online auction marketplace. It's easy to buy and sell with Grays.